Thank you guys. Thank you all. I'm Larry Green, Napa County Chair. I was trying to think of some witticisms and some cool things to say tonight, but I've been so busy running around scolding a lot of you, telling you to move along and don't stand here and that kind of thing. So sorry about that. Thank you for your patience with me. How about Lake County in the house? Lake? I don't hear Lake. Okay, YOLO. YOLO County. Make some noise. Solano. Represent Sonoma. All right. The big dog Napa. All right, Yuba City, Yuba City. That was a joke. Big Ten Republicans, right? Big Ten, Big Ten. Okay. All right, we got a lot of stuff going on tonight. Wonderful speakers, as you know. Maria. People who took photos in the VIP area, I'm going to put a link on the Napa County GOP website. Napa County GOP website, there will be a link where you can go on and download your photos. No cost, none of that stuff, free for everybody. Napa.keepthesmile.com is the link you're going to be finding there on the Napa County website. Not sure when I'm going to get that up, but it'll be within the next few days. We are going to have prayer, pledge, national anthem, that sort of thing, as the protocols out of the way, right? We're going to let Brandon come on. He's going to dazzle you, and then we're going to take a very, very quick, about a 5-minute bathroom break. You might want to go outside, check your auction items, if you have your auction items out there, and then let's get right back in for Dinesh to begin his show. Okay? One thing, too, this is very important. We are going to be recording this session tonight. No cell phones, no people holding your phone up and snapping photos and that kind of thing, because the glare from the screen will show up in the camera and it kind of takes away from the whole experience. So we're asking you not to use any cell phones, videos, that sort of thing. Now, I would like to introduce Nancy Smurns, the chaplain of the Napa County GOP.
Good evening, everyone. Would you bow your heads in prayer? Lord, we're so grateful to be here tonight, and we just pray for our nation as we gather together. Please give us hope and a vision through our speakers, Dinesh D'Souza and Brandon Straka. Protect our sovereignty and the values that created this great nation according to your word and your will. In your name we pray, amen. Amen.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce the next mayor of Napa, Doris Jackson.
Allegiance. If you would stand, and if your heads are covered, please take your hats off. Remain standing for the Star-Spangled Banner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we had a last-minute extra special guest show up today. Great guy. This is Peter Coe. He is the California Vice Chair for the Republican Party.
If you know the lyrics, please sing along. That'd be great. Hands off, please. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, George Gentry once again going to be running for mayor. She is one of the more reasonable, conservative-minded, in spite of what you've heard, conservative-minded people running for mayor in Napa. We're pulling for her.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really great that this group gave me 20 minutes to give you my stump speech. Okay, no, they didn't. They gave me one. I just wanted to tell you, for those of you that are not from Napa, I am right now in the middle of a huge embroiled mess over the LGBT community because in my city, we didn't have a policy for flying a flag. And my whole city caved and agreed to hang the flag on the American flagpole. And I was the only no vote. And turns out I was the only no vote in American Canyon, Knoxville, St. Helena, Calistoga, and County of Napa. Shame on me is what they say. But my position was put up a flagpole, hang celebration flags, but do not hang it on the American flag. So, needless to say, I'm being horribly beaten up. We all have LGBTQ family and friends. We love the people. It's not about that. It's about the dignity and honor of America, of our American flag. For those who fought and died for me to have the right to stand here with you today with free speech. God bless you, and God bless you. I will be your mayor in Napa 2020, the only Republican in the county.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's represent just a few of the people who helped put this thing together. I'd like to have the county chairs for Solano, county chairs of Lake, county chair for Sonoma, Maria, yeah, and who did I forget? Yolo, yeah, Yolo, guys, stand up, represent. Where are you? Okay, yeah, hey, there, there's Dan. Thank you very shout out to Tamika Hamilton, ladies and gentlemen. Tamika Hamilton going up against the left-leaning John Garamendi. Take him out. Congresswoman, 3rd District. They're going to be our vote. All right. He's the Northern California representative of the chair. Very instrumental in this debate. This is a group effort, guys. It was a group effort. So, thank them very much. Let's get down to business. So, I've intended to memorize this, but I was busy. So, Brandon Straka, born and raised in rural Nebraska and now a resident of New York City. Brandon Straka is the founder of the perfectly timed WalkAway campaign. He's a former liberal and former Democratic Party member. His first YouTube video about his decision to leave the Democratic Party went viral in May of 2018, resonating with Americans across all demographics to leave the divisive left. Brandon frequently provides commentary for Fox News as a recurring guest on Justice with Judge Janine, Fox and Friends, Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, and many more. His candid, in-depth interview with Mark Levin on Life, Liberty, and Levin exposed millions to Brandon Straka and the WalkAway campaign. Even President Trump publicly acknowledged Brandon's success in organizing the first ever WalkAway march in Washington, D.C., with over 5,000 actively engaged attendees in spite of the October rig and random goal. Today, Brandon Straka travels the nation promoting the WalkAway campaign's unifying message and sharing his desire to bring a new awareness and understanding to the realities of American politics today. Ladies and gentlemen, Brandon Straka.
Know who I was when we were taking pictures. Amazing, I love you too. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I'm not Dinesh D'Souza's son. Got asked that a couple of times while we were in the picture line. Although it is preferable to what I was my name last year, which was the poor man's Milo Yiannopoulos, as I through most of last summer. My name is Brandon Straka, and I started something called the hashtag WalkAway campaign. Thank you very much. Sounds like a couple of you have heard of it, which is good news. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for braving the typhoid outbreak here in California to come out tonight. Don't you just love Democrat-run states? Exactly. No, thank you all for, so much for coming out tonight. Thank you for supporting. That in itself is an act that I think is so important. Being involved, being active. It's amazing how many people sit at home behind their computers complaining, but never leave their house and actually do anything. We have to be active if we're going to take this country back. The Democrats sure are. They are extremely, extremely active, and they are very, very good. They're like child predators, honestly. They're like child predators. They're out trying to tell all of your children at every corner bus stop. They're like lurking in vans with candy, basically being like, come over, vote Democrat. So it's really important that we counter that, and we get out, and we be active, and we make our voices heard, that we fight back, frankly. I want to kind of start at the beginning and tell my story. I know that a lot of you have probably heard it before, but there are a lot of people who have not, and I think that it's an important story that should be told and people need to know, because there are so many people in this country who are having experiences similar to the experience that I had, and I think it's important. What I represent, I think, to so many people is the possibility that this country can change, that people can change. Thank you. I promise you, 2 years ago, I never thought I would be standing on a stage as a conservative encouraging everyone to leave the Democratic Party. But here I am. It can happen. It is happening every day. WalkAway is making, I think, a huge difference all together. We can make an even bigger difference. We are going to spread this movement from coast to coast, and then we're going to go around the globe, and we are going to get everybody to walk away from the ideology of liberalism and, whatever the Democratic Party is in various countries around the world. All right, so let's start at the beginning. Let me tell my story. I am a former devotee to the Democratic Party. I am a former liberal. My liberal devotion goes back to my teen years. I'm a gay man who grew up gay in rural Nebraska in the 80s and 90s. Thank you. If being gay is an accomplishment, you're going to love the other stuff I've done. Just the beginning. Alright, so I grew up gay in rural Nebraska at a time when homophobia was pretty rampant. The AIDS crisis was rampant in America, and there was a lot of division and a lot of hatred, and the messages that I got very early on were that Republicans hate gay people, that conservatives hate gay people, and that I was one of those weird kids who knew I was gay when I was like 5 years old, and how fun was that to grow up in rural Nebraska, always knowing I was gay. Like I didn't even have like the blessing of figuring it out when I was like 18 or 19 years old. I just always knew. And so the messages that I got were that I was not safe on the right, that the Republicans and the conservatives hated people like me, and that it was really only liberals and the Democratic Party that had my best interests at heart. Now it's kind of funny in retrospect, really, because the Democrats didn't really actually, on a political level, start supporting any gay issues until public opinion had already crossed the tipping point well beyond 50%. But we'll get to that, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But I'm saying that at that time, that's what I believed. I believed that I was only safe on the liberal left and amongst the Democrats. And there certainly was, a huge onslaught of Hollywood celebrities, actors, singers, pop icons who were echoing those sentiments to me as well as every young person, as Hollywood tends to do. So when I graduated from high school, I left my little tiny town of O'Neill, Nebraska, and I headed for the big city, New York City, because I wanted to be somewhere where I felt like I could totally be myself, where I could feel safe, and where I could feel like I was amongst other like-minded people who I felt like were like me. So I moved to New York City, and I fell in, big surprise, with a very liberal crowd. It's not hard to do in New York City, especially if you're kind of quarantined within the gay community. It's kind of like shooting, liberal fish in a barrel. But, so I fell in with a very liberal crowd, and something that is now so clear to me, that wasn't clear to me at all at the time, was the ways in which my political thoughts and opinions were being shaped simply by the idea, what I think we now call a hierarchy of intersectionality. That's just basically a very fancy way of saying that when you're a liberal, there is this sort of unspoken understanding of exchanging favors and support and beliefs with other people who are liberals, just in order, I think, to support each other and have each other's backs. Liberal women who supported gay rights would tell me that they had a right to an abortion, and that anybody who disagreed with abortion was waging a war on women and hated women. And I thought, yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable. Sure, I'm pro-abortion, of course. I'm a liberal. That's how much thought I put into it. People told me that anybody who is against allowing anybody and everybody to come into this country legally or illegally and asks with any questions asked, is doing so because they're a racist or a bigot. And I thought, okay, sure, that sounds right to me. I'm pro illegal immigration. Like, sure, why shouldn't anybody who wants to come into this country whenever they want to be able to come in? They were telling me that that right-wing people were paranoid gun nuts, hanging out in their fallout shelters with their ammunition and their. And some of you kind of are. I mean, come on. God bless you. It's your house I'm coming to first when the war starts. I chose the right team. Took me a while, but I got it. Actually, I'm very anxious to buy my first gun. And I've never needed it more. It's true. So I think you get the point. The majority of my political beliefs were shaped solely off of the idea that I was a gay man hanging out with other liberals. And so very quickly I fell into the hive mind. Very quickly I fell into the groupthink, the tribal mentality, all of these things that happened with the liberal left. I think I saw at the time subtle examples of what happens to people when they fall out of step with the groupthink and the tribal mentality. You get shunned pretty quickly, you get shut down pretty quickly, people don't like it, they don't like being questioned, they believe that they have a morally superior point of view, that there's something morally deficient with anybody who disagrees with how they feel. But it didn't really matter much at the time because I wasn't questioning anything. I just assumed that they were right. And I believed everything that I was being told. I didn't go to college. I ran away from Nebraska as quickly as I could, and I ran off to New York City. And so a lot of my friends were actually Ivy League graduates, brilliant people, lawyers, finance people, doctors, people that I sort of always assumed were probably much, much smarter than me. And so oftentimes when we would go out and we would party and we would end up back at somebody's apartment and we'd end up discussing politics. And oftentimes I would just do a lot more listening than talking because again, I just assumed that they were smarter than me. They knew more than I knew and I would probably be better suited to just simply listen. I remember one night when we were at one of these after-hours gatherings when a friend of mine, female who's a lawyer who went to an Ivy League school, was talking about how racist it is that the penalties for crack cocaine abuse are so much higher than cocaine abuse. And she was telling me because, as she explained it, she said, cocaine is a white people drug. And, she was like, they know that cocaine is a white people drug and crack is a black people drug. Now, these are the non-racist liberals talking, just so we're aware. So she's explaining to me how crack is a black people drug and how cocaine is a white people drug. And because, the racist system of government, that is in place knows this, and so the penalties are much higher for crack users. And so basically what she's saying is that, this is how the government, systematically has gone after black people. And I just waited for kind of a pause in the conversation because there was this little thought in my brain that was just nagging at me. So when everything got kind of quiet for a second, I said, I have a question. What if they just didn't do crack? And everybody looked at me like I had grown 5 new heads. And she goes, what? And I said, well, if the penalties are higher for doing crack than doing cocaine, why not just not do crack? And she said, no, you're not getting it. It's racist. It's racist. I was like, maybe I'm not getting it. Run it by me again. So she kind of tells me the story again, and I said, I'm not getting it because I feel like if it were me, and I were a black person who felt like I had a target on my back and knew that crack use would land me in jail with a much stiffer penalty than perhaps someone else of a different race or a different drug, I would use it as an incentive to just simply not do drugs and perhaps pursue a more useful purpose for my life. You know, do something better. No, you don't get it. It's racist. You are not getting it. And I left that night thinking that I didn't get it. I left that night thinking to myself, well, these guys are a lot smarter than I am, and they all went to Ivy League schools, and I, just went to high school in Nebraska. It's true, I don't get it. I don't get it. I think that they're right, I'm wrong, I don't get it. And so I walked away from that situation feeling like there was something kind of unresolved there that continually nagged at me, but I believed that, there must be something wrong with me questioning this sort of ideology, or, the common belief that so many people around me were constantly echoing. In 2015, the Supreme Court decided that marriage equality would be the law of the land in all 50 states across the country. As somebody who had always kind of been on the fighting lines of marriage equality, I thought that this was a great moment of celebration for my community. I felt like we had crossed a final finish line, and then we crossed a final hurdle, and this was going to be a great moment of celebration. And I really truly thought to myself, my God, like maybe I'm going to know what it means to be a gay man in America and not live in a time where, my existence or my rights are a cultural debate or discussion. Maybe we've actually evolved past this. This is the most amazing moment, I think, for any gay person in the history of America. But what happened next, I found completely confusing and absolutely stunning. Suddenly, my community began splintering into every possible identity group and falling into this unbelievably complex and confusing totem pole of victimhood identity. Suddenly I started hearing things. What's that? He says I'm a grown-up. Well, thank you very much. Tell that to my mother. She's impressed with all of this, but not that impressed. She's like, don't forget who you are. I know who you are. Done. Mr. Fox News. Okay, so suddenly I started having people within my own community telling me things like, you're a privileged white gay man. Try being a black lesbian. Try being a Middle Eastern trans, whatever. Try being a black woman, lesbian in a wheelchair with type 2 diabetes. And I was just like, I can't keep up with this. Can't we just be happy? We just got marriage equality. Yay! It was weird. It was like suddenly people were more angry than they were before that, and more divided. And the hatred that I was experiencing was coming from within my own community by people that I would think would know better. Right? It's like we spent all these years kind of side by side fighting this fight, and now they're turning on me. And there was one day in particular where excellent news source. Have you heard of the Huffington Post? It's really good. Google it. Hashtag fake news. Yeah, it's a joke. So the Huffington Post had this sort of subsection that they called the Huffington Post Gay Voices, which, by the way, even in my liberal days, was disgusting. The sick part of me would never unfollow it on social media. Every day I would just keep reading it, becoming more and more enraged, because the stories were, it was never a story. They would never dream of doing a story about me or WalkAway. No. It's always so disgusting. graphically sexual thing, you know, or some just absolutely repelling thing about the community. And I was like, really, this is like what we want the world to think, what we want them to think we are, you know? But for me, one day, it was around 2016, before the election, the Huffington Post Gay Voices announced that they were changing their name to the Huffington Post Queer Voices. I can't. And they said, and they made a big proclamation when they did it. They said, we really feel like this is in the best interest of the community because it's a very all-inclusive term. And they said, not only are we changing our name to the Huffington Post Queer Voices, but we are going to insist that all other media sources going forward when reporting about LGBT issues refer to LGBT people as queer people. I just about lost my mind. I wrote them, this was on Facebook that they made this announcement, and so I wrote a response to this, and it was honestly a very respectful, very, well, evenly tempered response, where I said simply, listen, for those of us of a certain age and who come from a certain geographical location, I don't want to be called queer. Okay, like being called, the word queer for a lot of us is the last word that we heard before a fist came flying at our face, you know? It's derogatory, it's demeaning, it's disgusting, it's low rent. I don't want to be called queer. And whichever little cabal of LGBT people got together and made this decision on behalf of all of us, could I please have a word with you? Because I don't want to be called queer. And it's so gross. Can you imagine if you met like a gay prominent doctor and he was like, hi, I'm queer Dr. Bob. It's gross, right? Okay. So I wrote my response and immediately I got pounced upon. But like the fiery gates of hell opened up and okay, so this is when I started to suddenly hear about these new terms and conditions that were coming out of the LGBT people, out of the LGBT community. Suddenly, I was being attacked on social media by people who were calling themselves non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer, two-spirit, and on and on and on. At first, my first reaction is this a joke? Like I'm like feverishly looking through the dictionary trying to understand what these words even are. But they're all telling me, well, of course you don't want to be called queer as a privileged white gay man. Try being non-binary, try being gender fluid, whatever. And these people banded together and got me banned on Facebook for hate speech. Literally, for that response, because I, as a gay man, who actually lived through the 80s, who actually lived through the 90s, who actually fought for equality and gay rights, was so attacked by people from within my own community that I got banned for hate speech, for simply saying I don't want to be called queer. And at that point, I didn't understand yet that something was very wrong with the left. I didn't understand yet that this was tied into politics. I didn't understand, to me, just the world that I once knew was crumbling. And it made no sense to me. I didn't understand any of it. And I was, frankly, heartbroken and a little bit destroyed. And I made a decision at that point that though I was born gay, and I'll live gay, and I will die gay, I'm always going to be gay, I could no longer be a part of this community. I'm out, I'm done. Because the LGBT community as it exists today is nothing more than a social justice warrior cult. That's what it is, it's a cult. So, I suppose in a way that was probably the first step to my own independence, really, for my own sort of like beginning to feel like I don't really want to be a part of the group anymore. I mean, at the time I wasn't thinking groupthink, I was just thinking, I'm not a member of this group anymore. I'll tell you something that I never really have talked about before anytime I've ever done public speaking, which is, I'd like to touch a little bit on my sobriety. After I moved to New York City, I started partying, hanging out again with a very liberal crowd. I was always going to bars and nightclubs, and what started out as too much drinking, too much partying, quickly devolved into a very, very serious, terrible cocaine problem that I had for well over 10 years. Yeah, horrific. And I truly believed that it would kill me. And I truly believed that I had screwed my life up so badly that it was completely beyond repair. I used to come home night after night after night with spending money that I didn't have to spend. I was months behind on my rent because I was spending all of my money on cocaine. I would get in bed at night by myself with my heart pounding out of my chest with blood running out of my nose, and I would still run in my bathroom and do more and do more and do more. I would go to my window and peek out the window. We okay? Should I? I would go to my window time and again, thinking that the police were watching me, or paranoia, and I would lay in bed hating myself, just absolutely hating myself, because every time I said, this is the last time I'm going to do this, and then a day or two later I would do it again, and I would do it again, and I would do it again. And it really wasn't until January of 2015 that I clearly made a decision that I had to change my life, because if I didn't, there would be no life. I literally would, this was going to kill me. I would either have a heart attack or a stroke, and then this would be the way that I died. That, my story would be this guy who started off with so much energy and so much promise and so much good that he could have contributed to the world, died alone in his bed in New York City in a dark room from a cocaine overdose. So I started going to AA in January of 2015. As of today, I'm almost 4.5 years sober. And it was there in the rooms of AA that I learned just about everything that I needed to learn to be able to one day start the WalkAway campaign. When I first came into the meetings, I had so much self-loathing and so much insecurity and so much fear of other people that I couldn't even talk. I literally couldn't even talk. I used to come to the meetings and stare at the floor. I couldn't make eye contact with anybody. I did make a vow with myself that if I was going to do this, I was really going to do this, and I was going to do it right. And so I told myself, every time you go to a meeting, you're going to raise your hand and you're going to speak. And you're going to do it again today, and do it again tomorrow, and do it again the next day, and do it again and again and again and again until you're able to get past this fear that you have of being yourself and talking to other people, and this assumption that you have that people are going to hate you before they even know you. And so I did. I would go to meeting after meeting after meeting. I would raise my hand and I would stare at the floor and I'd mumble out a few words. And then finally, after several weeks, if not maybe more than a month of doing that every single day, going to meetings, I built up the courage to bring my eyes up and look at other people in the rooms. And you know what I saw? As I was telling my story, it didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter if I was talking about how much I hated myself. It didn't matter if I was talking about what a loser I thought I was. What I saw when I would look around the circle in those rooms were people smiling and nodding their heads and showing me with their eyes that they understood exactly how I felt, and that my feelings mattered, and that I mattered. And what I realized is that everybody is carrying around a lot of negative feelings inside themselves. Everyone's carrying around a lot of feelings, period. But mostly people are just waiting for somebody to say something. Everybody's just waiting for someone to say what everyone else is already feeling. And that was the lesson that I learned, the first lesson that I learned in AA. That if you feel something and you feel something strongly, you're not the only one. You're not the only person feeling it. The next thing that I learned through doing step work with a sponsor was accountability, responsibility, that it didn't matter the obstacles that I had in my life. It didn't matter what my starting point was. My sponsor used to say to me all the time, and I hated it, but he used to say to me all the time, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. He said, your path is your path. keep your eyes on the road. Don't be looking at other people's roads. Keep your eyes on your road. That's the only thing that you need to pay attention to. No one is responsible for solving the problems in your life. No, I don't care if your parents weren't there for you. I don't care if you started off with no money. I don't care this, I don't care that. It is up to you at this point to decide what your destiny is, where your life is going to end up, and if you're going to make something out of your life or not. Do you want to? And I thought, yeah, I think I do. I think I want to make something out of my life. And so I started working really, really, really hard to change things. And I ended up going to cosmetology school, put myself through school. I went every day, and that taught me hard work and discipline, and it taught me that you really can change your situation if you apply yourself, that you don't have to be a victim of your past or a victim of your circumstances. If you are willing to work hard and you are willing to try, the American dream is alive and well for everyone. And so let's get to 2016. So in 2016, I was very, very excited because finally, Hillary Clinton was going to become president. Yay! What? Oh, I think I totally misunderstood what the audience was. I'm sorry. Just kidding. I was on the Hill Dog train before she even announced that she was officially going to run in 2016. I was so excited. Liberals kept telling me that we needed a woman president. They kept saying down with the patriarchy. They kept saying that, it was time for a woman. Now, mind you, not Sarah Palin. Not that woman. But Hillary Clinton, that was the right woman. And so we had just had the first black president who took all the credit for all of the gay rights that were advanced during his time in office, although he did absolutely nothing, actually, for gay people. And so I thought that Hillary Clinton was a natural progression. And I thought that anybody besides a Democrat in office would put in jeopardy the amazing progress and advancements that we had made, in this country, because, again, Republicans are all racists and bigots and homophobes and terrible people and morally deficient in every possible... Deplorables! You're all deplorables. What pride, what pride. Check your egos, people. When Donald Trump announced that he was running for president, like most people, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was really, really funny. And the media, that's how they treated it. They thought it was hilarious. I mean, it was like literally, it was every day it was a different headline about, him being a clown or a buffoon or, and it's interesting in retrospect because, don't you think that if Hitler really had come back to Earth and announced that he was going to run for president, there probably would be no period of time where we would think that was a joke, or we'd be like, oh, Hitler, But, oh, that Hitler. Go back to The Apprentice. But because they thought that he had absolutely no chance of winning, they just thought he was a buffoon and they thought it was a joke. Well, then as time went on, it got less and less and less funny. Because he built a movement in this country that was unlike anything we've ever seen. Spoiler alert, I love him now. Did I just ruin the end of the movie? You have no idea that was coming, right? So anyway, as it became more and more obvious that he was probably going to become the Republican candidate, it became terrifying to the media, and who, by the way, is just a propaganda arm for the Democratic Party. That's all they are. Don't you love it when they get all like dignified stuff? They'll just be like, "We are honest, upstanding journalists, sir. How dare you, Mr. President? Russian collusion, Russian collusion, Russian collusion, Russia, 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 start right now. So when it became more and more obvious that he was going to more than likely be the Republican candidate, and that this was no longer a guarantee, that she had this by a landslide, that she had this in the bag, they had some heavy strategizing to do. They had some decisions to make. They thought, how are we going to take this guy out? And I think they got together and they got very, very clever. And they asked themselves, what triggers liberals more than anything else in the world? Social injustice. We have to make this guy the most racist, the most homophobic, the most bigoted, the most sexist, the most terrible, horrible human being who's ever run for office before. Boom, it's a plan. Let's go with it. And so they started going to his rallies, his speeches, anywhere where Trump was, and it didn't matter if the man spoke for 3 straight hours. They would take a 10-second soundbite out of context, throw it up on the news, and say, Donald Trump called all Mexicans rapists today. Donald Trump mocked a disabled reporter. Donald Trump advocated for the sexual assault of all women. Donald Trump said that he wants to have all Muslims thrown out of this country, and on and on and on. And you guys, you know what? I believed every word of it. Every word! I mean, see, that was the addict in me still. I was going back, like a crackhead every day watching Rachel Maddow and Anderson Cooper. Again, totally misjudged the room. I thought you guys were gonna clap. You don't like Rachel Maddow? She plays a really great part in my story. Wait for it, you're gonna love it. So yeah, I mean, like I could barely get through my day sometimes, just like waiting to go home and watch, CNN or MSNBC to be like, what did he do today? What did he say today? Oh my God, And as terrified as I might have been, believing as I did what they were saying, I wasn't really scared because they kept saying, yes, he's Hitler. Yes, he's the worst thing that's ever happened in this country, but don't worry because he has a 3% chance of winning. And, you might as well get your, Hillary Clinton Russian dolls and put, oh, wait, that was the wrong. What are those things called? Never mind. Never mind, it's not even important. I used the word Russian, the joke is dead, move on, I screwed up. All right. Melissa, make a note, I'm gonna fix that joke next time, okay? Don't use the Russian, okay, good. Okay, so basically they were saying, go ahead and prepare, put your Hillary Clinton posters on the wall, we're good, she's got this, everything's gonna be, it's just a waiting game, November 6th, she's got it, let's go. And so, on election day, I was horrified. Horrified. I mean, the actual election day, I think that the New York Times or the Huffington Post, I suspended my hatred of them for 1 day, the Huffington Post. And I was, over the queer thing, when I was like, okay, we'll be friends again for election day. One of them had said he had a 1% chance of winning or something. So I was like, oh, let's just cut to the end where she's the president. And so as the day was progressing, and it was just I was like, what the hell is going on? What is happening? What is happening? And I was horrified. I mean, so I live in New York City. It was the East Coast. It started getting late, midnight. They hadn't called it yet. And so I went to bed because I was so stressed out. I couldn't even I was like, I can't take this anymore. So I went to bed, and I kept rolling over every 15 minutes to see if maybe, 180 electoral votes had come in for Hillary Clinton in that 5 minutes. And they didn't. And then around 2:30 in the morning, the Huffington Post called it. And I looked down at my phone and I saw a picture of Trump with a red banner above his head that said, "Nightmare, President Trump." And then the sub-caption said, "Millions to lose their health insurance, civil rights to be rolled back, ... and other possible headlines from a Trump presidency." They started predicting the future the second that he got elected and scaring us. Literally, the second he got elected, they started scaring us that we were in for a really, really bad time. Immediately, within a day or two, the stories started rolling out. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to jump ahead yet. So the next day, I woke up the next day, horrified. scared to death, crying. It was very dramatic. I was working as a hairstylist at the time. I had to cancel my day. I called in and I said, cancel all my appointments. I said, I cannot be anywhere near scissors today. Or bleach. And so I sat at home crying, and I got on social media. I got on Facebook. I'll never delete these videos. You're welcome to go to my page. They're still there. Crying, asking America, how did you do this? Why did you do this? How? And nobody would answer me. And, you know, the interesting thing was that, you know, growing up in Nebraska as I did, I knew, you know, I was friends on Facebook with people I went to grade school with, high school with, that I'd grown up with, so I knew that these people had more than likely voted for Trump. But they didn't say so, and they weren't saying anything. And now, you know, in my great moment of agony, where were they? Like, to answer and to reassure me that I wasn't going to be thrown into a concentration camp, like they kept saying was going to happen. And so my rage began to build and build and build for months after the election. And finally, in January of 2017, about 2 months after the election, I got on Facebook and I posted, I would never be able to understand how you people could watch this man stand before a cheering crowd and mock a reporter's disability and still go to the voting booth and vote for him. What is the matter with you? And finally, for the first time in months, somebody answered me. There was a woman named Diane. She was my babysitter when I was a baby. And she reached out to me, and she's always been a staunch Christian, always been a conservative. She and I have had so many battles over the year on Facebook. I don't know why I never unfriended her, but I didn't. But she very sheepishly reached out to me, and she was like, look, you know, like, please don't rip me a new asshole, but I'm just wondering, have you seen this? And she sent me privately a video entitled, Debunking the Trump Mocked the Disabled Reporter. Now, I saw the title of this video and I was instantly enraged. Just reading the title, I thought to myself, oh my God, this is more right-wing propaganda, more brainwashing, more Fox News, you know. And so I very arrogantly wrote her back and I was like, you know, LOL, okay Diane, yeah, I'll be sure to watch it. And I did, I watched it. But I watched it with the intention of writing her back and telling her how stupid she was for falling for it and being such, you know, a right-wing idiot, you know. And I watched it, and what I saw next was a compilation of footage, about 5 minutes long, of Donald Trump through many, many years, I think going back to even possibly the 90s, doing that exact same voice and that exact same gesture as he did that day when he was mocking a reporter's disability. But the commonality was that he was imitating somebody who was flustered because they were caught in a lie, or they did something shady, or they'd done something dishonest. He did it to people that were not disabled. He did it to people that were white, that were straight. And I looked at this, and my brain could not comprehend what I was seeing. I mean, I truly, honestly had a moment where I sort of dissociated from my body because my brain was saying, oh my God, I don't think he mocked that reporter's disability. But my heart was saying, but we hate him, but we hate him, but we hate him, but we hate him. And I literally could not process what I was experiencing. And so I watched it 3 times in a row, and I couldn't figure it out. So I closed my computer, got into bed, was up all night, my brain turning. And I thought to myself, okay, you don't need to figure this out tonight, I don't understand this at all. But maybe tomorrow, watch it again, fresh eyes, and you know, that hatred for him, it'll be fresh new day, and it'll all make sense tomorrow. So I woke up the next day and I watched it again, and it was crystal clear. He did not mock a reporter's disability. That did not happen. But this presented a different conundrum. Because if he had not mocked a reporter's disability, why did CNN tell me he had? They had never lied to me before. Wrong that day. started asking fellow liberals, fellow conservatives, fellow people in New York City, hey, what do you make of this video? Like, take a look at this. And I swear to you, people were angry at me just for even asking them to watch it. People were like, what? So what, you love Trump now? What are you doing? What, you're going to the dark side? I was like, I hate Trump. I hate Trump. But I was like, I'm just trying to understand what this means. I don't get this. Like, it makes no sense to me. Some people did watch it, and they said, okay, well, maybe he didn't do that. But he still did all this other stuff, so what difference does it make? I thought that's pretty logical. No, that's good. I buy that. Yeah, maybe he didn't mock that reporter's disability. But he did say all those horrible things about Mexicans and all this other stuff. Right? Well, it became very clear to me that I wasn't safe even having these conversations or asking these questions among other liberals. People were getting so angry at me, and they were coming back at me with such a wall of contempt and hatred. And so I started getting in bed at night and doing research and reading in the safety of my own home and trying to find out what was actually going on. And I started watching. What time is Dinesh coming up? I've been literally time for 3 hours. I better shut up. I can't hear you. 2 minutes? And then I started the WalkAway campaign. Oh my God, someone could have given me a warning. Okay. Long story short, I did a lot of research, and ultimately, after I did a lot of research, what I discovered was that the liberal media was lying to me. They've been lying to minorities in this country for a long, long time. They're lying to everybody. But if you are black or brown or LGBT, they are using your identity and your fear against you. They are manipulating you. They are making you... They are making you believe that you are a victim that is stuck inside of a system from which you cannot break free, for which you will always be oppressed. They are making you believe that straight white people in the conservative movement hate you, that you don't have a seat at the right, that you don't have any room at the table in the conservative movement or the Republican Party. And I started to see, oh my God, I get it now. I get it. All this time that liberalism hasn't made sense to me. That night, that friend of mine told me that I didn't understand. I get it now. I get why I didn't understand, because liberalism doesn't make sense. By 2018, I decided I was ready to do something about what I had discovered. And so I decided that I was going to be walking away from the Democratic Party. I was going to be walking away from the ideology of liberalism, but I knew that there were millions of people that were feeling exactly the same way I was feeling. So I shot a 6-minute video in which I told everything that I had, from all the research I had done, all the reading, everything that was wrong with liberalism in the Democratic Party. And I created something called the WalkAway campaign. I encouraged other people to make their own videos, to tell their own stories. I told those who are walking away, tell your stories, make your testimonials, and they did. They stepped up. By the tens of thousands, people started joining the group. Then they started making videos. They started telling their stories. I told those on the right, this isn't just a campaign for those walking away from the Democratic Party, because you know what? It's also time, just like I asked for months, for someone to tell me, why did you vote for Trump? Why did you do this? And finally, one person stepped up and made a difference in my life that changed me forever, and I have now changed millions of people potentially forever. I said, it is time for the silent majority to become unsilent. It's over. Conservative. Stop allowing the liberal media to control the story, the narrative, the truth of who you are. Only you can tell your story, nobody else. Make your videos, make your testimonials, and tell people that you walk with those who walk away from the Democratic Party. Can Dinesh come back tomorrow? It's a joke. It's like I have the sun. It's like I feel the heat coming out of this side. Okay, Melissa, we're wrapping up. Okay, so long story short, I think you get it. If you please support what we're doing, be a part of it, make your voices heard. You've already taken the first step. You showed up here tonight. You don't understand how huge that is. Keep showing up. Please. Go to WalkAwayCampaign.com. When you go to WalkAwayCampaign.com, there's going to be multiple options for you to get involved in whatever way you're able to. If you can volunteer your time, click, I think there's a button that says volunteer your time. You can click a button that says join the movement. If you join the movement, it's going to redirect you to our social media page that literally is going to change your life. You're going to love it. Every day, I have people tell me every day that reading WalkAway testimonials and watching WalkAway testimonial videos has saved their life. That is their favorite part of the day. They say, every day I go and I listen to these liberal zombie idiots in my office that are ruining my life, and I want to kill myself every day when I'm at work, and then I get home and I watch WalkAway videos, and everything... And most importantly, and don't you dare clap at this unless you actually mean it, donate. Donate, donate. We are traveling around the country, giving the college campuses. We're doing town halls for the Black community, the Latino community, the Jewish community, the LGBT community. We are going to liberate minorities in the country. So all to walk away! WalkAwayCampaign.com. Be a part of this, and I mean it when I say donate. This isn't church. I know some of you feel the Holy Spirit right now. And then you're going to leave, and you're going to be like, he wasn't that great. I mean, he was kind of funny, but you know, WalkAwayCampaign.com. Be a part of the movement. Volunteer your time. Join the movement. Please donate. Please support us. I love you all. Let's hear from Dinesh D'Souza.
Some Q&A. We have some Q&A cards written down. We're going to get Brandon and Dinesh out here together. You're on.
Nice job, Dad.
Yes, if he... Can you hear me? Oh, okay. You don't hear this.
So I'd like to ask two questions each, or one question from each of you. Dinesh, the last election, the conservative vote lost the popular vote. The electoral college, we obviously won. Had the roles been reversed, clearly if they were reversed, would we still be defending the reasonableness and the rationale of the electoral college?
So this is a very kind of a deep question, which is to say,
Wow.
you never thought Larry had it in, did you? Well, what Larry's asking is, do we have a principled commitment to the electoral college, or are we merely for the electoral college because we won that way? And if we, let's just say it was reversed, Hillary won the electoral college, we won the popular vote, would we immediately switch and start screaming for election by popular vote? The first thing I want to point out is that is exactly how the other side operates. They care less about an issue of principle. So the very fact that we're discussing this now is an illustration of my point a few moments ago that we're different than they are. We scratch our heads and go, wow, you know, we happen to win by the rules of tennis, namely 3 sets to 2. But if we sat down and tabulated all the individual points, we noticed that in the 2 sets they were 6-0, whereas the sets we won was 6-4. So if you add up the overall points, the other guy actually got more points. So really, do we actually believe in the rules of tennis, or would we prefer the other rules? And I just want to point out that this is a characteristic of our mode of thinking. Now, as it turns out, my answer is really simple, which is to say, the point of the Electoral College was to figure out how to balance the interests of small and large states, to make sure that large states don't completely swamp the small states, and that large states do have more representation. We see this in Congress, but small states are given an equalizer because they have the same number of senators, for example, that large states do. So this was a very precarious balance, not just aimed at getting a union at that moment, but aimed at answering a deeper question, which is, what do you do when you live in a society in which there are small and large groups, and in which the concept of majority rule becomes nothing short of tyranny of the majority, if the large groups always win and the small groups don't even get to really play? So for these reasons, I think that the Electoral College has a logic that goes beyond the fact that it's in the Constitution, it was set up that way. Now, by the way, I should tell you, let's just say that my argument had no merit, and it is in the Constitution, the Electoral College is set up that way, still lacking any good reason for the Electoral College. We should still defend to the death the Electoral College, because ultimately the Electoral College, as long as it's working for us, is the best way to save the country.
Brandon, I was reading on Wikipedia that the WalkAway campaign was pure propaganda and connected to Kremlin-linked Russian bots. That's a quote. And I've heard other criticisms not only on Wikipedia.
Who are you talking to?
I would like to know,
Who are your friends?
I would like to know your rationale.
We're sitting?
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd like.
You're wondering what my thoughts are about that?
Absolutely.
Right, so I was very fortunate when I started the WalkAway campaign in that, I was fortunate, and to be honest, I worked very, very hard. When I first released it, I started getting interest from local AM radio stations. I said yes to every single interview that I was offered, small podcasts, AM radio stations, little blogs, things like that. As the word started to sort of spread that way, the offers got a little bit bigger, the interest got a little bit bigger. Eventually, a few months into the campaign, I was doing interviews on Fox News. Around the time that I started doing Fox News interviews, the campaign became no longer ignorable by the liberal media, but they were not willing to talk to me or have an interview with me about it, get a statement, anything like that. So it got to the point where they thought, well, we have to cover this somehow because it's a thing that's happening. But we sure as hell can't tell the truth about what's happening, so what are we going to do about that? So the story came out about this being a Russian propaganda campaign that was created in the Kremlin. It was supported by Russian bots. And then they backed it up by saying that I can't think of the word. A sample was conducted by something called Hamilton 68. And Hamilton 68 essentially was this organization that was put together that supposedly was tracking Russian social media interference. It is literally the most unscientific thing in the face of the earth. And they say themselves, we're not really sure if they're Russian accounts or not, we're not really sure of this, we're not sure of that. But they were willing to say that a significant number of Russian accounts were using the hashtag WalkAway. Now, upon a little further probing, what was discovered was the significant number that they're referring to was 78. They're not sure if they're Russian accounts or not. They're also not sure if they're bots or not. But in their sampling, they found that 78 people were using the hashtag WalkAway. But my answer to you is, what would I say to refute that? It's been the same answer all along. It's very simple. Watch the testimonials, read the testimonials, they don't lie. Go on YouTube, go on Facebook, type in hashtag WalkAway, Google it. We have thousands upon thousands at this point of video and written testimonials, people who are telling their stories. Black people, brown people, LGBT people, white people, straight people, old people, young people, fat people, thin people, people. They're not bots. So, I certainly never created the campaign thinking that something like that was going to come up, but I'm sure glad that I encourage people to make videos, because you can't, it's irrefutable. These are real people telling their real stories. That's what it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very reassuring. Okay, I've got Michelle Bear in the back, and I've got Matt Heath, and they're going to be reading some of the cards from people that have passed in throughout the evening.
Now try it. You're good.
Okay, so this first question, and these were questions that were written by people from the audience. So this first question is for Mr. Dinesh. Would you consider coming up with a top 20 or 50 conservative historical reading lists?
Well, you know, I could. I mean, I wrote a book some years ago, Letters to a Young Conservative. It was intended for young people. And at the end of the book, I have sort of a bibliography of the 20 books that young conservatives should read. Now, we'll say that today, many of those books are about things like the difference between a libertarian and a conservative. In other words, they deal with the meaning of conservatism. These days, I'm less interested in that. What I'm more interested in is in the kind of evidence that explodes the left's bogus narratives. And unfortunately, on that issue, our side is very weak. Case in point, Lyndon Johnson was a lifelong racist. He was using the N-word long after he signed the Civil Rights Act. He's a guy, so you have a puzzle here, because you have a racist using the N-word who nevertheless promoted the Civil Rights Act. How can this be explained? It's a very important thing to explain, because from the left's point of view, Lyndon Johnson is a guy who used to be a bigot, but then became morally enlightened, and represents the conversion of the Democratic Party itself from a racist party to being the party of enlightenment. So this is a very important narrative for them. So then I look around and say, okay, well, let me see if I can find some biographies of LBJ. Sure enough, there are about 15 adoring progressive biographies that all sanitize LBJ to support this narrative. So then I say, let me find, surely there will be 2 or 3 critical biographies of LBJ, which are going to give me the goods on LBJ, and I'm going to be able to now have some red meat that I can think about and argue about. And then I look around and I can't find a single critical biography of LBJ written by any conservative in the past 30 years. I think, what the heck? We have 63 million Trumpsters, we have people graduating from college, people doing PhD theses. Surely it occurred to 2 of those people to take on LBJ. This is not like, we're not writing here about Gnosticism in the 4th century. This is a very important narrative at the heart of what the left's self-portrait. Yet, no one on our side has evidently done it. So the difficulty for me is I'm trying to make a movie. It's insuperably difficult for me to now take these progressive biographies, read between the lines, excavate into caves that they didn't want to go into, to ferret out information that I then have to put together and dramatize on the screen. So my point is, if I were talking to young conservatives today, I would say, listen, go out and do the field work that is necessary to support the arguments that not only promote our narrative, but undermine their narrative. And that kind of work needs to be done, is of great value to our side, and I would like to see more labor invested in those areas in the years ahead.
Thank you guys. This question is for Brandon. Brandon, what can we say to reach our liberal friends, especially our educated liberal friends, who have multiple master's degrees and are professors or teachers? How can we reach them?
Oh boy, that's the hardest question in the world, because I always say, the more educated a liberal is, the more indoctrinated they are. So believe it or not, I actually think it's a lot more difficult to red pill somebody who has like multiple degrees and whatnot. But all right, so let's remove that for a moment. One strategy that I always recommend to people, and you know, it's not going to be successful 100% of the time, but most liberal people come from the point of view that they are morally superior in some way, and that they care more about other people than people on the right do, that people on the right are selfish, greedy, unempathetic, disconnected people. And so I always think that an effective strategy when having a conversation about politics with a liberal is to try to begin it by establishing mutual core values, things like that would appeal to them. For instance, saying things like, I too care very much about low-income Black Americans. I too care very much about low-income Hispanic Americans in this country. That's why I think it's great for us to have strong border policies, for us to not allow illegal immigration in this country, because did you know that it's actually low-income Black Americans, low-income Hispanic Americans that are most disproportionately affected by illegal immigration in this country? Do you know that it's them that's actually hurt more by those policies than anybody else? I mean, so I think if you can begin a conversation that way by saying, like, hey, we all care about people of color, LGBT, all people in this country, but basically establish that your conservative values or your Republican values don't stem from a place of greed or selfishness or self-interest necessarily. I mean, I've found that conservatives really care more about the good of the whole, I think much more than liberals ever did. You know, in my days as a liberal, I never felt that way. I mean, there's certainly, I think, a feeling of if we're all doing well as conservatives, then I'm doing well, then America's doing well. I mean, in order for each of us to do well as individuals, we all need to be, America's at its best when everybody's doing well, right? And thank you. I think that's probably the best advice I could give, and that's why I started my 6-minute video the way that I did. I started off that WalkAway 6-minute video by saying, I staunchly reject racism of any kind, I staunchly reject, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because I was trying to appeal to liberals and other people on the left when I made that video to say, hey guys, please listen to what I'm saying and try to open your mind to what I've discovered here, because there's something going on. But I knew I would never reach them if I didn't make clear to them I didn't suddenly become a Nazi. I didn't suddenly become a racist. You know, I'm over on the right as staunchly against all of those things as you are, but there's a different way, I think a better way in this country to help all people, and for me that's conservatism. And so I think that's the way to have that.
This one is for Mr. Dinesh. Is Biden really a threat to Trump in 2020, considering his lack of concern for China and his consistent flip-flopping?
Questions is about Biden. And Biden's problem is not the flip-flopping. The flip-flopping, in a way, might even help him a little bit. Because the other candidates are so firmly on the left. See, the left doesn't like Biden. They were just about to run him out of the race. Then it suddenly dawned on them that he might be the only guy who would give Trump a run for his money. So now they've suddenly all backed off from attacking Biden, thinking that maybe Biden can get through to working class voters that have been critical for Trump's success. Now, I think in the old days, Biden would have been a bigger threat. Biden would have been a bigger threat if you could take Biden, not now, but 20 years ago, and put him against Trump. The problem with Biden right now is, here's Trump and Biden, and frankly, they're both septuagenarians, right? They're both in their 70s. But the difference is that basically Biden is a 70-something going on 90. And Trump is a 70-something going on 50. So that's going to become very apparent. Biden does not inspire his own side. Trump is starting to fire up even traditional Republicans who were very unsure about him the last time around. Partly because he came out of nowhere. But Trump has established such an anchor on issues like pro-life. He's been so dependable that I think that there is a kind of upsurge of Republican enthusiasm about Trump that will play out this time that he didn't have to the same degree. Last time you had the Republicans and you had the Trumpsters, and Trump had to basically navigate those waters. Now he'll have both camps en masse. So Trump will be very formidable. I think Trump can win 5 or 6 more states than he won last time if we all fight, if we all put our energy to the wheel, we apply the resources that are necessary, and we fight effectively. Those are all critical things. But if we do it, we could see really great results next year.
And to Brandon, to dovetail on that, who will be the front runners against Trump in 2020 from the Democrat side?
Honestly, my instinct says Kamala Harris. Who said yeah? Somebody said yeah. No, I do. I know this seems very basic, but I honestly think that this is where we are right now. I think that identity politics is their number one thing right now. And I think it's so pervasive, and I think it has gripped the party so much that her being a woman and being non-Caucasian are the traits that I think that they cherish and value at this point more than anything else. And the reason why I guess I feel so comfortable saying that too is that they also have for the first time an openly gay man running for president, which once upon a time I would have been really excited about. I would have thought that that was like so cool. And so now I'm actively rallying against this man. And his, by the way, his in-laws have joined the WalkAway campaign. That is to say, his partner's, wait. Yeah, his partner's brother and his partner's brother's wife. And I spoke to them on the phone because the media started picking up on the fact that they had joined the WalkAway campaign and they had made a testimonial. And so I just called him and I said, first of all, are you all right? And he was like, yeah, because I don't think they expected the media to pounce on it like they did. And he said, yeah, we're fine, we're okay. And I said, I need you first and foremost to tell me, because he's a pastor. His partner's brother is a preacher or pastor. And I said, is this because they're gay? And he said, not at all. He's like, we are totally cool with the fact that they're gay. It's because they're terrible. And he said they're extremely immature and they have no business being this close to the office of president. But the point of all of this was that even having an openly gay man running for president right now, they don't like him because he's white. They don't like him because he's too white. So, I mean, that's why I think Kamala Harris is probably going to be their front runner. They love her because she's not Caucasian. They love her because she's a woman.
So this one's for Brandon. What initiatives are WalkAway working on, and how can we help?
Amazing. So many things that we're excited about right now. So the first year of the campaign was really just, finding our way to a certain degree. We were a social media campaign about making testimonials, about bringing people together using the medium of social media. Now we're very much dedicated to being boots on the ground, to get traveling around the country as much as possible, to growing our state groups so that there can be activism happening all across the country without me having to be there or people from my team having to be there. So we have developed 50 state groups. They have state leaders at this point. We're going to be developing very boots on the ground initiatives to get people out there voting, registering new voters. We have somebody that we're teaming with right now. I'm sure some of you know Scott Pressler. Yeah. I truly think Scott Pressler is the hardest working activist in the country. Rain or shine, he's out there every day registering new Republican voters. It is his absolute mission, and so he's joined our team, and he's teaching activism training to our state leaders and beyond so that they can get out in the communities and be, Scott Pressler always says if we can each register 5 new Republican voters, we'll have millions of new Republicans going to the polls by 2020. So simple, 5 people between now and 2020, get out there and register 5 new Republican voters to it. We have a new educational video series coming out in 2 weeks or less. The first one's going to come out. We're calling it The Hard Truth. It's going to be WalkAway's educational video series where we have one speaker speaking on a topic with animation, graphics, about a 5-minute long video. Mine is actually going to be the first that we release, which is about liberal media bias. Imagine that. We'll be covering subjects such as capitalism and socialism, racism and segregation, voter registration and activism, and anti-Semitism, which is, there are Jewish people in this country are so ready to walk away. They have passion. We're going to continue to get more involved in speaking in college campuses, going across the country. And what I think I'm really proud of right now is what we're calling our Town Hall series. We're doing these different town halls, but they're like cool town halls. They're not like the really lame, like your concept of a town hall. We're trying to make the concept of a town hall kind of edgy, youthful, fun. So we're going around doing them for the LGBT community, for the Black community, again, Jewish community, Hispanic community. So basically going into communities that are obviously typically voting Democrat or liberals and having this sort of back and forth dialogue and debate. Why are Black people still voting Democrat at a rate of 90%? Why? I mean, the party has destroyed their community. Why are LGBT people still believing the media and that's telling them that Mike Pence wants to put them in concentration camps, when in fact LGBT people should be enjoying the most free time that they've ever had in the history of this country? So these are the conversations, really, that we want to be having and that we're doing with these different town halls. How people can help, please go to walkawaycampaign.com, make a donation. These events that we do are very expensive. We don't have a major donor. We're not backed by a millionaire. We're a grassroots organization, which I'm very proud of. And I think that we're doing and accomplishing a lot through the donations of hardworking Americans who contribute $20, $30, $40, $50 at a time. I think we're having a huge impact. I think there was something else I was going to say, but that's probably enough. Go to walkawaycampaign.com, please.
Quickly, with the changing definition of socialism with news media here in America, can you explain to us or answer the question, is there hope for America?
Yes, the very fact that the left is using these strong-arm tactics is for the simple reason that their socialism by itself doesn't sell. If it did sell, they wouldn't need any of this. In fact, it's kind of funny because everywhere I go, people say on the left, they go, well, our model of socialism is not Venezuela, certainly not the Soviet Union, our model is Norway, our model is the Scandinavian countries. And I'm like, do Scandinavian countries have Antifa? Do they go around beating up their opponents? Do they use the police state against their critics? Do they set up racial hoaxes all the time in order do they fabricate events? No, they do that in Venezuela. But they don't do it in the Scandinavian countries because they don't have to. The problem is that the reason the left does this stuff is that they don't think that the working class in America is with them. The reason they need identity politics is they need a new version of Marxist proletariat. They don't have the workers, so they need professors, and they need lawyers. They're in search of a new proletariat, if you will. So, the bottom line of it is, I won't underestimate their strength. They have tremendous strength. They have tremendous resources. It is a regrettable fact. It used to be the case in America that basically as people became more wealthy, they became more Republican. When I was at AEI, the American Enterprise Institute, my colleague Irving Kristol used to say that Jews are the only people in America who earn like Episcopalians but vote like Puerto Ricans. Right? But you couldn't tell that joke now because it applies to everybody. Wealthy people earn like Episcopalians, and a lot of them vote like Puerto Ricans. So what's happened is that the left, in addition to having the knowledge class and the intelligentsia, also now has the money on their side. I read this disturbing article just in social media that the Koch brothers may start giving to the Democrats. Wow, this has been the largest single funder of our side. So what this means is these things do matter. I mean, for me, look, if Michael Moore wants to make a movie, he goes to a Hollywood studio. They give him $10 million. He makes a movie. All he has to do is make the movie. They will do everything else for him. In other words, they will promote the movie, he'll be on every show. If Bill Maher wants to be a successful comedian, all he has to do is tell jokes. Everything else will be done for him. But Brandon is discovering, and I've known this for a long time, on our side it's not like that. If you want to make a movie, you have to have the following skills. First of all, you have to do all the legal work to do a PPM, a private placement memorandum. The first time I did the Obama movie, I found an investor who gave me $100,000 and he told me to go find 19 other people that each give me $100,000. And I wasn't in the fundraising business. I had to find 19 other people to give me write that kind of a check. And to a guy who had never made a movie. Then I've got to go make the movie, and then I've got to promote it with no help from the media. So the point is, in order to get these things done, it takes a lot of both skill and resources on our side. So bottom line of it is the other side is formidable. Why do they want socialism? They want socialism not because they love socialism. They want socialism because they want to wrest the power away from the entrepreneur and put it in the hands of a political class that controls not just the economy. If it was just the economy, it'd be bad enough. It's ultimately about controlling your whole life. And it's ultimately about controlling your thoughts. That's the point of the, how many fingers am I holding up? If you think of things like climate change, it's a version of this. Because here's a claim that flies in the face of anything that we can see or observe. It is a claim that is empirically irrefutable. Why? Because if there are floods, it's climate change. If there are droughts, it's climate change. If it's too hot, it's climate change. If it's too cold, it's climate change. So, in the old sense of Karl Popper, what prediction can you make to falsify this theory? The answer is none. All evidence is taken in support of the theory. If nothing happens for 10 years, that proves climate change. So, that's a way of essentially the left saying, how many fingers are we holding up? And you've got to say 5. Now, their additional support is a parade of experts. And this is part of their game. They figured out ways to parade experts at all the appropriate moments, like trained sealers. If Kavanaugh's up for the nomination, 300 law professors will sign a petition saying he's unqualified, and they will do this overnight. So the left can engineer this kind of thing. Again, we don't think this way. This is not our mentality. This is why we are always surprised. And we're always on the defensive. Even the MAGA people, these days are all like, so much winning. I'm like, no, guys, calm down. This is not so much winning. The other side has been taking lethal shots at us. They narrowly missed. They almost got us. We have barely survived. That's not called so much winning. When we are taking lethal shots at them, that's winning. So we have a lot of work to do, don't get me wrong. But we have the truth on our side. If we fight smart, we can beat them down. Now, I want to answer a question earlier, slightly differently than Brandon did, about the professors and how you deal with them. The way you deal with a professor, the way I deal with a professor when speaking on the campus is the following. It's not so much to try to convince them I'm not a Nazi or that I have shared values with him. Rather, what I try to do is, in a Socratic way, bring out the core hypocrisy of his position. The point of it is not to convince him. It's to convince all the middle-of-the-road guys sitting in the audience that are listening, who will be hearing this for the first time. So I would like to say to the professor something like this. Professor X, you have been saying to me now for 15 minutes non-stop that persons of color are underrepresented on your elite university's faculty. And you think this is a deplorable situation that needs to be corrected by an expansion of affirmative action. Let me ask you this. The view that minorities are underrepresented and their positions are currently being held by unqualified white people, that's not my view, that's your view. You've been arguing it. You're a white person, right? So you are evidently the occupant of an undeserved position currently at your own university. Now, true, you can agitate for affirmative action, and that's a long-term thing, but there's an immediate thing that you can do tomorrow morning to address the problem. Walk into the dean's office and announce that you'll be resigning your position as a professor effective tomorrow on the condition that your post be given to a deserving minority. And if you aren't willing to do this, why not? The point of this is to do what our side rarely does, which is to immediately put the other side up against the wall. Immediately put them on the defensive. Now, inevitably, he's going to come back and say things like, well, Dinesh, that's the easy way out. Dinesh, I'm going to use my constructive influence on this campus to agitate for social change. To which I come back, he'll say things, I understand where you're going, Dinesh. You're trying to expose hypocrisy, the general hypocrisy, to which I stop. I say, no, I'm not trying to oppose the general hypocrisy. I'm trying to expose your hypocrisy. And what's the point of agitating for something when you are in a direct position to put your money where your mouth is and enact the actual consequences of your belief? Don't you think the rest of us would be more likely to get on board with affirmative action if we saw you living up to your actual convictions? And isn't the fact that you're unwilling to do that expose you as a fraud and a hypocrite, trying to actually sacrifice other people's careers to actually achieve your moral wonderfulness? So the idea here is not to let these people get away with this pomposity, which is fake, but it is to penetrate the core of it. Notice I haven't called him any names, but I haven't let up on him. And I'm not about to back off. And you have to press the point. Like right now I have 150 leftist professors who are searching the entire historical record to find one Republican in 1860, pre-Civil War, who owned a slave. Okay? Think about this. Think of what this means for our side. And the importance of this is the following. Until a few years ago, the head of the RNC, Ken Melman, a colleague of mine at AEI, was going to black churches apologizing for the racist history of the Republican Party. This is how much we buy the big lie. So I come out and say, in 1860, the year before the Civil War, no Republicans owned slaves. All the slaves in the country, 4 million of them, were owned by non-Republicans, obviously the vast majority Democrats. There were a few other tiny parties. And so this has set off a massive historical quest to prove me wrong with a single counterexample. And as of this date, and this has been now going on for about 2 weeks on social media, the left has come up with 3 counterexamples. Think of this, 3 counterexamples in the entire country's history of a Republican, and they have been searching, and you can call it the nooks and crannies of history. So, for example, Kevin Cruz of Princeton, he goes, Dinesh, I gotcha. This guy named Burton was a Republican, and he owned a slave in 1861. Now, this is the point. The reason I gave the year 1860 is it's pre-Civil War. The moment that the South seceded, there were Democrats in the border states who became scared. They were pro-slavery, but they didn't want secession, and they didn't want war. and some of them became Republicans. So these are pro-slavery Democrats who at the last minute, because of their opposition to secession, not slavery, joined the Republican Party so that they would be on the winning side. So I reply to Cruz and I go, listen, if you listen to my speech, I was talking about pre-Civil War because I recognize that the politics were different once the war broke out. But what I want to point out here is even though this is ongoing, think of what's being established here. I have set up a debate where the left is in an exhaustive project to prove that out of the 4 million slaves in the country, there was at least one Republican who owned one. That's where I'm at, which is kind of where I want.
All right, just one last question. This is Murray Bass. I'd like to ask you a question.
About 40% of the people who are eligible to vote don't vote. I've heard you both refer to the idea that people should have their voices heard. This 40% has nothing to say. And my question is, and it's a grassroots question, how the devil do you get these people informed enough and interested enough to get off their cans and vote?
Murray Bass, ladies and gentlemen, 102 years old.
So, I'll offer two quick thoughts. First of all, a good way for us to think is, let's start by asking, how does the left do it? So the left would never ask a question like this. How is it possible to get people interested enough? No. Their question is, how do we get people who have absolutely no interest in voting to vote for us at the polls? And that's the starting of their thinking. So then they start thinking of things like buses. We have to grab people who are doing absolutely nothing and have nothing better to do with their day, put them in a bus, and take them to the polls. Okay? Right away, you have to sort of admire the tenacity of their side, because they're not handing out leaflets to the homeless and saying, hey guys, you might consider voting, after all, it's your country. And no. They're like, here's a bus, and we're serving sandwiches on the bus. And we're going to take you somewhere, and we're going to talk to you on the way, and when you get there, this is kind of what you have to do, and then we'll give you a ride back. So the left makes it happen. And their idea is not just persuasion, it's to deliver the actual voter to the voting booth. So what I'm calling for here, and this begins a little bit with just a new framework of thinking, is you start thinking in really radical ways. Like, if we have an electoral college, the election really comes down to 7 states. The voting is pretty close in those states. What if we could convince 200,000 Republicans to move into each of those states? That would lock those states. That would lock the election. That would basically lock the country. What is the actual way you do that? How hard is it to actually do that? Can it actually be accomplished? I say answer yes, yes, and yes to all those questions. It's just that no one's thinking about it. No, for most people it is just too wild to consider. And I'm not talking about it making an individual family do it. I'm thinking of what kind of incentives can you create that bring the left is already thinking this way about illegal immigration. They're thinking, how do we rig the rules so that our kind of voter, those numbers are swelled, dwarfing their kind of voter. So think of California. California was Nixon country, it was Reagan country, and they have sort of deluged California. Their strategy has kind of worked. Where's our strategy? We don't have one. Even in Texas, we can see the demographics sliding against us. And no one is asking radical questions. They have questions like things like, how do we do some better outreach? Yeah, we have to do better outreach. But there are other ways to think about the question that aren't even on the table, and I'm saying that's kind of where we have to go. Thank you.
All I would add to that really quickly is that, and it's basically kind of echoing what Dinesh just said to a certain degree, I think that we on the conservative side have to be much, much stronger and better than we've been to this point at connecting with young people and people are getting more interested in voting because there's so much anger and so much, hostility going back. People suddenly feel, I think, like they need to be more involved in politics than they used to feel. I mean, more people came out to vote in 2018 than I think ever did at a midterm election before. So I do think that the interest in voting is there, but it's like, are we connecting and communicating with the people that we need to be connecting and communicating with? I'm certainly going to do my fair share of that between now and 2020, connecting with young people, connecting with minorities, connecting with people and telling them that their vote matters, that their vote counts, and that there are a lot of good reasons why they should be thinking about voting conservative as opposed to voting what they're told to vote by the media and told to vote by the Democratic Party, which is, to vote Democrat. So let's just continue to speak out. You've already done the first step, you've showed up. Well, let's keep our activism alive, let's keep the passion alive, let's go out and register new voters. Let's tell people that they have a seat at the table of conservatism. Let's let all people across the country know that we want them in the Republican Party, we want them in the conservative movement. Let's register them to vote and make sure we get them a bus to get there and some sandwiches.